Hello and welcome everyone to Edge Talk Radio. My name is Angela Zabel, that's me, and today we are here. We are going to be talking about numerology, riding the waves of 2025 with teacher, numerologist, and she has so much more with her. She does sound healing, she does Reiki, she has so much underneath her. We're going to get into talking with Kay Kraty, and she is from the UK, and I can't wait to get into the numerology of 2025 with her and so much more. And today, who am I? My name is Angela Zabel. I have connected with spirit my entire life. I've been working with a team in the non-physical, sharing messages and with a multitude of realms with people. I am a teacher, coach, medium, radio show host, writer. I also do gallery readings and speaking engagements offering guidance, mediumship, and intuition on those with online and in-person sessions working around the globe. And I also have classes in the Amplified Universe membership. This is all about who we are, how we can grow our connection to us, our world, and what our role is in it. And you can find out more about me at angelazabel.com, and I'm pretty much on all the social media aspects. And I'm all about sharing knowledge and working with people throughout the world. And today we are here with Edge Magazine. Edge Magazine, well, I'm going to get that in focus. Edge Magazine is the leading events and media resource dedicated to all aspects of holistic living, health, wellness, and the mysteries beyond, promoting businesses, organizations, and individuals who support our collective journey to wholeness and balance. They are currently distributed in 30 states plus Canada with over 17,000 magazines per printing, and they have a vibrant online magazine with over 42,000 people reached per month. You can have the magazine shipped to your door, stay up to date with the newsletter, become a drop spot. Go to edgemagazine.net. And they have one, it's going to be interesting because we're talking about sound today. And for those of you here, if you can focus in on the QR code, there's actually a singing sound bowl meditation on here that you can download and listen to for the new year of 2025. And today, we are here with Kay Kraty, and thank you so much for being here, Kay. I am so excited. And she is a holistic practitioner, numerologist, and teacher. Kay draws on many energy tools gathered over her 30 years of study and learning. Her work as a Gong Musician, Reiki Master Teacher, and Esoteric Numerologist. It enables Kay to offer group and solo gong baths, sound healing, Reiki treatments and training, numerology readings, and spiritual development. And there's so many people looking to develop their own spirituality in these upcoming years. She does both in person at her Riverside healing space and where feasible online. So make sure to check her out. The best way to find her is go to her Facebook. It's Kraty, K-R-A-T-Y. So that's Kay.Kraty on Facebook, and check her out there and you'll be able to contact her there. And Kay, I just want to thank you so much for being here. I know what you're going to be bringing to the table today is going to be so enlightening to so many people. But my question is, how did you start off into this realm, this journey of numerology and sound healing?
Hmm. I started numerology as I start many other things because I'm curious. And I'm curious to make sure that it's grounded, that it actually has a space of reason, that it's something that people can. So I started really as a bet with a friend of mine who said, well, she'd seen this and surely there must be nothing in it. And I thought, well, I've always thought of numbers as really the symbology of them, the shape, their sequence, the patterns they make, the repetitions that come up, and where in the sequence particular numbers are and how they add up, not because I'm a mathematician, but just because it is interesting. So it's about qualities rather than quantity that I'm interested in numbers in. So yeah, so I started by checking out the Connaissance School of Numerology, which is a numerology school here in the UK. It's based in Royston, which is exactly slap bang in the center of the UK. It's very much connected to Knights Templar, and it has a cave which was used for rituals that the Knights Templars used to use. Um, And it was a 3-year course. And mainly, we would meet 3 times a year for a month or two. And then in between, we had coursework and exams and tests. And, it was fairly rigorous. So, yes, that is my numerology background, which was started probably in the early 2000s.
Nice.
Sound, I've always been interested in ever since I was tiny. And I trained at the Guildhall School of Music and Drama, and I did drama and music there. And yeah, and then the gongs came very much later. I bought my first gong in 2013, and then I thought I better learn to play this. So then I went and and learned with a lot of masters, including a lot of gong masters from your country. Um, all people like Don Conroe and yeah, Mitch Newer and all sorts. So yeah, so that's kind of where I come from.
I love the combination of your fascination with numbers and then with music. And it really, I'm just going to say my team has been working my team in the non-physical, and they're saying for you, they're just showing the numbers and the musical notes almost seem to combine for you to really create this palette that you've been able to paint off of really and create lots of new energetic ways to help a lot of other people. And you are definitely someone who digs in deep with everything. And it is so interesting to see the combination of the numerology and the musical notes coming together and how beautifully you have been putting them together throughout the years.
It's very interesting you saying that, but just as a sideline. Many years ago, when I was very much younger, I read a book by Hermann Hesse, a German philosopher, and it was called The Glass Bead Game. And he talks about the combination of music and sound and numbers. And it struck a chord as it would. So yeah, very interesting indeed. So
I
yeah.
love that. I love that. I love how, and everyone has their own unique aspects about themselves, and they're able to bring about a unique energy to the world and a unique outlook on the world. And that's something so impressed with you. And I'm really looking forward to you going in deep because you are one who wants to talk about the energies of 2025 and how they flow, how they work, and what you come into. And I know one of the things is it's almost like you channel some of that information. And because of that, I think if you would like to explain some of that to people, then I will just kind of sit back while you go through that so I don't interrupt you with it.
Oh, that's really kind of you, Angela, and thank you very much indeed. So yes, it's absolutely fascinating this year because the overview of 2025, I think first of all I need to explain that in esoteric numerology, when you look at a number that's more than one digit, the anything after the first digit that you might write down has a higher frequency, comes from a higher vibration. So you might write 2025 as 2025. I will read 2025 as 5202 because I will
Oh,
start at the highest frequency, which is the 5. Does that
interesting.
kind of make sense a little? Because one
Yeah,
always goes to the highest, the possibilities, the best, as opposed to looking at the mundane, the everyday, dare I say it, sometimes quite boring energies that might be the feet on the ground, daily life energies.
I have never heard it spoken that way. I'd never heard it talked about that way, and
Mm,
it's
mm.
very intriguing. So I am looking forward to this immensely.
Yeah, um, so we look at first of all just a heads up that this year, and I'm sure everybody's saying the same thing, whatever their background, it's a year like no other. It's full of expansion and transformation, and it's very, very fast. It's speedy. And you may have thought that 2024 and 23 was speedy, but you ain't seen nothing yet, seriously. Volatile, lots of endings and beginnings, and happening at once. So something is ending as it's beginning, as it's ending, as it's beginning. It literally is bang, 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 which is quite a ride, in other words. But I need to take everybody back a little bit here because the template, the sequence template for 2025 started in 2020. It started 5 years ago, the year 2020. We had a reset year that year. We had the pandemic, we had a global reset, we had global change. And part of that was brought about by the fact that 2020 moved from 2019 into 2020. So the one of the 19 went into the two of the 20. Does that,
Oh,
have I still got you?
yes. So,
2020. Before that, the year before that was 2019. So in order for that digit of the one to change up to a two, it's increasing its velocity, its potential by 100%. So it's
ah,
increasing its speed by 100%. Does that make
interesting.
sense?
Absolutely. And that really makes a lot more sense when you look at it because everything before that was humming along, really humming
Completely.
along. And not, I mean, there's changes, but nothing real drastic.
Nothing. No.
And once we hit that, it's like everything accelerated to warp
Absolutely.
speed.
Yeah.
Warp speed.
Yeah. And the reason for that acceleration is what is called the hidden number. Because when you look at 2020, 2020, we have two zeros, right? Now, a zero in numerology is called the lens. It's all the better to see you with. In other words, it
Mm,
sharpens the vision, it magnifies, but of itself, it has no value. So the things that have value are both twos. So the two and the two of 2020 together become 22. And a 22 is called a mirror number. A lot of people will call it a master number, but that is actually vocally disempowering that number because a master number simply raises it up a bit. A mirror number explains exactly what's going on. If you put a mirror opposite another mirror, exactly opposite, those reflections go on forever.
Ever.
And so it opens up, it widens the opening to reflect back the qualities of each of those digits, the good qualities as well as the bad, because I have to tell you that every number, every digit, every number, single, double, whatever, um, they all have their plus side and they all have their minus side because we all have opportunities, we all have challenges. So it depends on what it is. Um, the 22 is called the master builder. A lot of numbers come with a label, and this label gives you an insight into the qualities. The master builder, what do I mean by that? Well, bringing spirituality into matter. So bringing down, so what you do, everyday tasks, making the tea, taking your kids to school, whatever it is, doing it from a higher viewpoint rather than from the lower vibration, bring spirituality into matter. Now, to do that requires self-mastery, because if you're grumpy or you're fed up or you're angry or whatever, then it's really hard to kind of master that emotion because you're on that trajectory of anger or grumpiness or whatever. Um, so self-mastery is important for the 22, but was also very important is that a 2 and a 22 is double 2 is about waves. It's
Yeah.
about waves of energy, waves of water, waves of emotion. Okay, so the plus side of this number is having vision, being able to see clearly, to bring about and to create, being honest and competent, disciplined, and having huge inspiration. The minus side of this number is recklessness,
Mm,
greediness, ruthlessness, and hugely unstable, very unstable. And that means that, you know, both extremes are possible, or a mix of everything, which is generally what happens, or something in the middle,
right.
but they are all ingredients in the cake that is 22. Does that make sense?
I love how you listed it as a cake that we're building, we're putting
Yeah.
together. And the water, because for me, water has been coming up so prevalently for 2025, the power and the energy of water. So I'm seeing how everything is being put together and the instability, the feeling of instability, because
Mhm.
boy, do people, that's one of the biggest things you hear. I just feel like there's no solid ground
Yeah.
anywhere.
Yeah.
And to know
Yeah.
that I think it's comforting when you said there's pluses and minuses. I think it's comforting to know, oh, that's probably why I haven't been feeling as stable. And I don't have to worry about it that there's something personally
Mm.
wrong with me versus going, okay, I'm just learning to navigate this new energy.
Yeah, completely. Now, in numerology, most people know that you reduce numbers. You know, if you have a number which has two digits or three, then you reduce it down to a single one. The 22 is therefore the mirror number. All mirror numbers will reduce, but with with sort of a degree of reluctance. They don't reduce to anything particularly positive because they are so bright and so wide open and so open to the light coming in because of this reflective nature that they don't really like reducing. So if somebody is trying to reduce that in terms of their attitude towards whatever it is they're doing, the four that this reduces to becomes a very kind of grumpy four. It becomes a four that is closed and fearful and wants to hold on to everything. Because if you look at the four, the shape of a four, and even if you look at, you know, the symbology of a four, it's a square. Um, it's an outline, it's a boundary. And so a fearful four will try and stay and hold tight to the walls and not venture out and not try anything new. And I don't want change and all of that. So all of that comes from fear. So there's a huge amount of fear in the four that comes from a 22. Any other four, no, it's fine, right? From the
Yes.
22, because it's come from that mirror number, you have got that kind of negative slant to it.
That's quite interesting to me because it feeling like with the when you said the reflection, it feels like more light coming in, but that means we really have to examine everything around us. And
Mm,
this is really a time to break out of the box. And to me, that four feels like a
mm,
box
mm,
that we
mm,
need to really move ourselves out of. So, what an interesting, I love the way you're explaining this. I think it really helps people understand it at a different level to understand the energies that's going with it. So, what a beautiful way to explain it. I also
mm,
feel it's such a good way because we know okay, we need to get out of the box. We need to step
mm,
out of that, but it's
mm.
not always comfortable.
No, absolutely not. So yes, and remember, of course, that this 22, this mirror number, in the sequence of numbers between 2020 and 2029. So we've got, you know, we have right now we're in the midpoint.
Yeah.
2025, we're exactly at the midpoint.
Mm.
And the midpoint is really interesting because I told you earlier on, I start my reading at the five because I start at the right-hand side. Any number more than one digit, I will always start at the right-hand side and work back, because you start with the higher vibration to go into the lower. Um, the five has, when it's in that position as last in line, if you like, it's
Yeah.
called the urge of the soul urge. It's the soul position, it's the spiritual position of the number. That means that wherever it is, which however long the number is, and in this case it's four digits, um, it it indicates the spiritual aspect of
Mhm.
2025. What at the highest level we really need to address and we need to try and manifest. Um, and the five also has an added flip to it because the five by itself, if you were to write down the numbers, the single numbers from 1 to 9, just straight on a bit of paper, you know, you would see that the 5 is exactly in the middle. It has 4 digits to one side and 4 digits to the other, 4 numbers to the other. But when you write down the number 1 and then the number 2, you would notice, if a bit of imagination, but you'll notice that the 2 faces, if you will, the 1. The 3 faces the 2. The 4 faces the 3. The 5 flips round 180 degrees and is facing the 6 and onwards. So
Interesting.
that 180-degree flip in terms of where it is in its position also adds speed. And so we're already in a speedy year, and this has just added it. All right. So you've got double whammy.
That I've never looked at the numbers that way with the way they're facing and how they do that. So what an interesting concept. And
Mm,
I love the spirituality you're talking about because I've noticed so many more people who are per se waking up to just ask questions and want to know more about what's going on and knowing more about the world at a deeper level, on a spiritual
mm.
level. And it's making a lot more sense now.
Good. Well, my strap line is making sense of yourself, because at the bottom line, if we can't make sense of ourselves, it's really difficult to make sense of the world. So yeah. So
Very
yeah,
true.
back to the number 5. It's at this position, the spiritual quest of this number is to turn humanity and the planet from materialism, from greed, from illusion, so untruth at all levels, to altruism, sharing, and truth. Reality with a capital R.
I myself am excited about that.
Yeah. However, um, and part of this is also to do with of expanding the 5's ability to increase multi-sensory perception in humanity, so that we become less fearful of being intuitive or whatever it might be, that people start accepting their many gifts that we've always had throughout history, but we tend to suppress
Yes.
um, and educate out of children, perhaps at some level as well. So, so yeah, the plus side of this number is therefore multisensory, it's adaptive, it's versatile, and it's very creative. But at the sort of negative or minus level, it is unpredictable. It
Mm,
can go anywhere. It's addictive. It dislikes commitment. It procrastinates. There's no discipline. It'll just go where it wants to go, which means, therefore, it can be very wild and very rebellious. And we've all seen that energy already. And we saw a bit of it last year as well, as it led into this year. The 5 basically pushes us up as humanity into new ways of being, into new ways of doing things, and how we are. But for many people, they are pushed beyond their limits.
mm,
And I think I've certainly in this country have found that a lot. We're only in January still, and yes, it's been difficult. A lot of people are making the decision to leave the planet, whatever it is. So the old is unraveling, and so many people don't have the tools, they don't have the confidence, and they don't have the understanding to understand that they need to trust the outcome, they need to trust the universe, they need to trust themselves. It will all be well, but it's a question of trusting, even if you don't know where that comes from. So, yeah. So I've looked at the 5. My next question now, or my next quest, is to look at the 2. I'm going backwards, remember? So this 2, of course, is a 20, but I'm looking at kind of both of them. So again, the 2 is very much the emotions. Remember, it relates to the sacral chakra as well. If you're into chakras, you'll recognize that. So it's the emotional, it's very much about self-doubt. Can I do this? Am I good enough? All of that is down there. and it's water and it's energy. And when I say energy, I mean things like electricity, things like,
Mm.
um, yeah, connectivity. So power outages, things like that, which in this country we've seen a lot of already because of flooding and winds and everything else. Um, it will likely be a lot more this year, more prevalent, put it that way. Um, on the plus side, it's unity consciousness. The two is always, where one is all about ego, two is about us, let us do it. Let's, holding the space for other people, equality, being supportive. But on the downside, the negative side is fearful,
Mm.
very egoic, and hugely inclined to judge and blame. It's everybody else's fault, it's never mine. It's that kind of mentality. Okay. So I've looked at 5, I've looked at 2, 20. Now I look at the 25. We're still in the realms of spiritual of this number because we're still on the last 2 digits when you write. It's becoming a little nearer to where we need to be, but yeah, it's still the spiritual side. 25 has the label, the birth of consciousness. So consciousness becoming conscious of our multidimensional ability, the aspect of ourselves that is multidimensional. Intuition, I mentioned before, telepathy, telekinesis, moving things with the mind, perfectly possible many centuries, thousands of years ago, Stonehenge perhaps being one of them, who knows? Thought transference. I don't need to call you, I don't need to tell you anything. You know because you can tap into my thinking. Now, in order for that to be in any way not particularly dangerous, it means that my thinking has to be of a high enough standard and a high enough vibration not to harm, damage you, not to upset you, so that everybody is coming from the same frequency, a high one. We aren't there yet. That's all I can
Oh,
say.
well, we're not there yet. Hopefully soon. Definitely not there on the high frequency yet. But I do feel there's a lot of people
But
that are
yeah,
stretching for it.
yeah. But at the plus side, again, it's talking about mastering the emotions because if we keep, following the emotions and getting frustrated and getting angry and holding resentments and bitterness and all of that stuff, it's just going to keep us anchored into a very low frequency and we won't be able to rise. We'll be stuck on the ground. Um, so mastering the emotions through the choice of being aware and watching and witnessing your emotions because we are all human. We have emotions. They have a purpose. It's useful rather sometimes to have an anger because it spurs you onto something, but it's not useful to hold on to it. Have
That's
it,
the trick.
watch it come up, understand why you're being angry, and then let it go. Don't hang on. So, use our ability to have our emotional smorgasbord, if you like. We have all this in front of us. We can pick and choose. I want to feel this. I want to, I want to experience how it feels to feel this. Feel it, but then let it go. Really important. And on
I
the
think that's
minus side,
I think that's something so important for people to realize. It's okay to have the emotions.
completely, absolutely, we're
Ex-
human.
yeah, we're not here to just be dead inside. We need to
Yep,
have
yeah,
those emotions, but we don't need to hang on to that being so upset and angry, the rage. We need to let go of that. We need to move
yeah,
beyond that and
yeah,
embrace the more positive and uplifting
yeah,
and higher frequency emotions.
yeah, absolutely. It's important to celebrate our humanness as we
Yes.
are, and yet also to look at it take it with a pinch of salt and let it go when we were able to do that. So on the minus side, it's giving way to these lower emotions, giving way and holding on to anger, fear, divisive extremes, you know, finding fault in whatever, again, a symptom of fear, but nevertheless, it means it leads to instability. And where we get polarity and duality happening, right and wrong and good and bad, and the judgment of that, and then the blame that comes when you're not doing this and you should be doing that, and all of that.
And I agree, the judgment and the blame is huge right now. And for us,
Mm.
and you can see and you can feel people moving beyond it. And I think that's the part for people to hang on to. People are moving beyond it. There are some that are not. That's okay because we're
It's
human.
where they are. Spirituality and spiritual consciousness is really, it's rather like a fruit on a tree. You can go into an orchard and you can pick an apple and you think it looks nice and you pull it and it's not going to come. It's not ripe. And when it is ripe, it will drop into your hand. And it's the same with a spiritual understanding. People aren't ready. It's not a judgment. It is an absolute statement of fact. They haven't ripened yet, but they will.
Yes,
It'll come. So just be patient. It'll all be okay.
I
So
love that.
yeah,
I love that. Where nobody, not everybody has to be on the same level or the same
no,
ripeness per se.
no.
And be patient as they ripen and as they do it on their
Mm.
own time frame. There's nothing wrong with that.
No. No, I was with somebody today and I taught her Reiki, and we had spoken with Philip, the spiritual philosophy, about financial energy. And
Mm.
she said, we did that course 2 years ago and I've got my notes, but it's just pinged. I've just understood it. It's just come to me. I'm now using it. And I think, fine, that's great. It's just really nice when that happens. The penny drops and they get it.
It
So
comes in.
yeah,
And love that. I love
that's
that people, the one thing that my team is just saying, they want you to realize even things you learned before, you may not get it all until it's time, till you're ripe to take it in.
mm,
So and they said that's
it's
very important to realize.
It's like coffee and percolating coffee. You put the hot water in, you don't immediately get the cup of coffee. You have to wait, and then the more you wait, the stronger the coffee, the better the quality, all of that. So, yeah, totally.
Absolutely.
So, we looked at 25, and of course, 25 reduces to a 7. Okay, so in this mix, we're still in the spiritual side of this number, 2025, this year. But we also find this 7 appearing, and the energy of the 7 has the label of awakening to the spiritual self. Now, again, if you compare that to the chakra, we're looking at the crown chakra. So we're looking at where, if you like, our spiritual antennae live as a human being. That is the highest point in the body. So that is the nearest part to God, if you will, or to source, or to the universe, or whatever your label is that you want to call it. So awakening to the spiritual self is about transmuting whatever was hidden, whatever was covered up, whatever was masked. It's transmuting the hidden secrets, the hidden lies, buried treasure, because even if it's nasty, if people often think that negative is not good, but actually negative gives you the opportunity to transmute it. And
Yes,
that, in a sense, brings you the hidden treasure. It allows you to transmute. You go through that and you turn it into gold. And, it's such a blessing that we are, as humans, able to do that. So the plus side of this number 7 is about having great insight, intuition, whole brain thinking, bringing together the left and right brain hemisphere to produce whole brain thinking, where the left is not constantly saying to the right intuitive side, you're wrong, prove it, which is, it does happen,
it
but
happens.
it actually works as a whole, and a very pragmatic outlook on life.
Mm.
The minus side is depression, confusion, psychotic behavior, mental anguish, because that comes when you don't know, when your left brain is too busy saying, prove it, and you know you can't. Because how can you prove intuition, knowing
Yeah,
without knowing how you know? I mean, it's impossible. So,
absolutely.
yeah. So then you get the questions at that level, who am I? What's going on? I can't cope, all of those things. And the seven is noted for needing time alone very often in order
Mm.
to process both the positive side, but also to get past that negative and move that into a different frequency.
I think you hit on something really important there is when you're going through and examining self, examining the world, examining everything around you, maybe looking at those sides that have been hidden and maybe not has not felt the best or the most uplifting, but when you look at it, you can heal it, you can move beyond it. But to give yourself the time to process it and to give yourself that alone time to really sit with it, with that and with yourself and honor who you are, I think that's so important. So important going forward. A lot of people think, oh, I don't want to deal with that. I need to be involved with everything so I don't have to look at it again. And to instead, no, it's okay to take time to look at it. So important. So thank you for
Yes,
that.
well, it's a pleasure, and it's really important not to avoid. And so much of that doing becomes avoidance behavior.
Ah,
And it's
yes.
avoiding looking at what is really going on and filling your life full of noise and full of stuff, whether it's psychological stuff or party stuff or stuff, whatever. And yet, actually, you come to the nub of it, and it is the self, which is then looked at, the still hours in the morning, and it becomes the dark night of the soul, which then turns into something beautiful. So, yeah, really
Love that.
important.
I love that. I love that analogy with everything. And I think it's so very helpful for so many
Mm,
people out there to realize when you're filling your life with everything else, you are avoiding.
mm,
You're finding a
mm,
way to
mm,
avoid rather than face
mm.
it.
Yeah, completely. So we've done everything, and we've now come to the zero, which, as I mentioned before, right at the start, we call a lens. So we know this has got no value whatsoever. So what's the point of the lens at this point? Well, everything I've spoken about before is going to be processed through this lens because it's marching towards the first number, which is the two we put down as 2025, okay, which is the feet on the ground way we express this number, this year. So the lens magnifies, it makes more of, it intensifies,
Mm.
and it increases the impact that all the previous qualities I've spoken about, of all the previous numbers, it increases that impact on the physical plane. So if you imagine for a minute a mincing machine, old fashioned or new, I don't care, and you take the number 5, the 20, the 2, the 25, and the 7, and all the qualities I spoke of, and you stuff them in, and you
Mm.
turn the handle, and it comes out as a sort of squooshed together lump, the other end, but it's all everywhere. But it still has those same qualities, and it's now moved from being something more spiritual into the more mundane plane, the
Mm.
more everyday. And therefore, it will color how we read the 20, which is the first two digits of the year 2025 that we wrote down to zero. So it's that, because they are very much on that mundane side. So the 20, I've already mentioned it, it comes, the previous number of a 20 is a 19. So
Yeah.
we have boosted that. But we're also, um, because we've boosted the one to a two, we're also looking at the newness of a two. So the 20, if it comes from a 19, is a bit like a new kid on the block. It hasn't kind of bedded in properly. It's very
Mm.
much like, your first day at work, the of us that ever did go to work. Yeah, and still go perhaps. The first day in the office, you don't know where the toilets are. You don't know what time the lunch break is. You're feeling your way round. So
Yeah.
the 20 always has that newness about it, slightly sensitive. In fact, when it comes to if it gets poked and prodded and it starts going negative, it's super sensitive. So
Mm.
it can be super sensitive and volatile because of that super sensitivity. It can therefore be aggressive and reactive,
Ah,
unstable, defensive, violent to cover up their fear of change, of how things aren't anymore being controlled by them, and very often feeling great sense of overwhelm because
yeah.
it's all too much. Now, remember that we've had 20 in our numerology really since we went into 2010. Previous to that, it was 2000, and that reads differently, but we invoke also the power of speech, and when we speak it, we say 2010, 2011,
Got it.
not 2000, where we're talking about a two, right? So the power of
Interesting.
speech, the power of the word, is very important when we come to add to the power of number. We're emphasizing the quality. So I think that certainly the last few years, we've seen a lot more of that, those qualities, and I think we'll see more of that again as we go into 2025. On the plus
It's
side,
interesting. I just want to say it's very
yeah,
interesting when you talked about when we say the word
mm,
2021 or
mm,
2013, 2010. You don't even realize that we do that. But yet, when you say it, you start realizing, oh my gosh, we've been bringing that in for quite some time.
completely. Yeah,
Wow.
completely.
Okay, very interesting.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
I'm realizing the power of things we already say and we don't even realize it.
yeah, yeah. So yes, on the plus side, 20 is bountiful. It's
Mm,
the goddess energy. It is creative, it's feminine, it holds a space, it allows the masculine to act, to do what it needs to do while it holds the space. It's the power behind the throne. It's unity consciousness. It's beautiful.
mm,
And it's creative and bountiful, which can mean many things because it is creative, but it depends what you want to create.
mm. Ah, therein lies
Okay,
the
so
question.
is it abundance or is it poverty consciousness?
Hmm.
What are you creating?
I love how you're doing that because, you talked about reflection and the looking glass and being able to see
Mm,
and it's really amplifying what's there.
mm.
And it's like, oh yeah, you really need be conscious of what you're thinking, what you're drawing in, because you can bring in abundance just as easily as poverty, but you get to choose.
And energy follows thought.
Yes.
I mean, basic physics, energy follows thought. So if you think something hard enough and long enough, it is really important. And at this point, I would say this, and I'll probably bring it up again at the end, but it's really important to have a personal kind of watchword. I use it a lot, and I tend to use it a lot when I'm driving because I get very impatient. I'm the world's most impatient driver. And if I'm stuck in a 40-mile-an-hour zone and the driver in front of me is doing 20 and the road is clear, there's nobody anywhere, it's the middle of the night, I mean, it's fine. And I will sort of be thinking, grr, I wish you'd hurry up. And I think, oh, come on, let's just neutralize that thought because you don't know the backstory. He might just have, I don't know, lost somebody, or he might not be feeling well, or you don't know their story.
Right.
So I am creating karma. In other words, I'm creating consequence for myself by the quality of what I'm thinking. So let's retract that. Let's haul that back. And how do I haul it back? Cancel, delete, and clear. It's like a computer. Cancel that thought, delete that thought, clear it from my memory banks and from my history. And then I've
I
called it back, and it's called back the karma as well. So it's very simple. But it's worth when you say something you wished you hadn't, when you think something you wished you hadn't, when you do something you wished you hadn't.
I think that's very powerful what you just said because like we're all human. We all have
Mm,
times where we
we'll
get
flip,
impatient.
know.
We get judgy, we get impatient. We're
Yeah,
human. We're living in this world. But
yeah.
to have those keywords, like you said, something to recall and really
Mm,
make you think about it. I love that. The cancel, delete, and clear. Because
mm,
it also I just feel such a lightness when you say those words because it really
mm,
lets you know, like, hey, get out of the judgment of yourself and just put it in a practical thing, just like a computer, cancel, delete, and clear.
mm.
And by doing that, it takes the judgment off of yourself. So what a beautiful message. I love that.
But also something more and something added to what you've just said. By actively, consciously invoking cancel, delete, and clear, it's a conscious thing, whereas perhaps the anger or the thought was a sort of subconscious, it was a sort of, it happened. So your intention
Mm.
is therefore active when you say and intend cancel, delete, and clear. So your intention is to pull it back. And that is the key. It's intention is absolutely the driving force for so much of what we do. So what is my intention?
I love that because I am such a big proponent of intention, of really paying attention to yourself, put
Mm,
intentions out there. What do you want? How do you want to do things? And putting the intention on everything, or as much as you can, to have an
mm,
intention going through
mm,
your daily life, I think
mm,
is so very important.
mm,
And versus I'm just hearing versus just leaving it up to whatever happens,
mm,
happens, which is
no.
good, but you don't know what you're
It
gonna.
was too fluffy for me, to be honest. I think and again, this year is about taking responsibility, and I'll come to that in a bit, but it's very much about taking responsibility for yourself, your behavior, to a degree, your health as well. I don't mean by that, obviously if we're ill, then we're ill and we have a problem. But if we get a diagnosis for something, then try and do things that will help that rather than carrying on the same old, thinking a pill will make it better, because it won't. And it's that sort of, does that make sense? So yeah.
Absolutely. Taking
Um,
responsibility go into this next year is so, so very important. You are
mm,
the one in charge of you. You're in charge of
yeah,
everything. And
yeah.
are you, but that also puts a lot of responsibility on you. You can't, oh, it's someone else's problem. Someone else caused it. You can't do that anymore.
Well,
So,
it's back to that, isn't it?
yeah,
Blame.
yes.
Everybody
Very,
else but me.
yes.
So yeah, so now we come to the two by itself. So this is the two, the first digit you write down, the first number you write down when you write down the year 2025. You write
Mhm.
2025, so the two. And that first number you write on any number that is even the single numbers, but anything that's more than that is always the anchoring number. It's always the grounding number. So that's the everyday, you know, 3D or 4D or wherever you think you are, D, that's the number that correlates with that. So this is the vibration, the label has the vibration of love and wisdom. That is what two comes with. It's again, we talk about self mastery on the emotional plane through self discipline. And
Oh,
here it's very much about watching yourself not going into dramas, watching
um,
yourself not going into fear, and not going and jumping on bandwagons. So just because he says it and he does it, I'm going to do it and I'm going to say it. No, don't. Make up your own mind. It's really important.
love
Um,
that.
so it's about the plus side is about feeling and acknowledging your emotions without attaching to them. So again, but more so, very much stronger now, it is really crucial that on a daily basis, we, as much as we can, yeah, work from a higher level,
Yes.
rise above in a sense. And if we can't because we're human and we fall over, well, fine. So then we have cancel, delete, and clear. So it gets us out of a hole.
I love
Um,
that. I love
Well,
the
we're
analogy of
human.
that. Absolutely. And I think that's the biggest thing. We're on this spiritual journey. We have to
Mm,
remember we're human. We're also having a human experience
yeah.
and embracing that part of it too, and not I've heard different ones where they talk down about being human, and it's like, why would you talk about down about yourself? We're beautiful,
Mm,
we're wonderful
mm.
people, and just having this experience, and everyone's going to do it differently, and that's okay. That's okay.
And also, I mean, as humans, we're symbiotic. We're part of the earth. I mean, we walk on
Yes.
the earth with 2 feet. Even if we're in a plane, we are connected energetically to the earth. So, for goodness sake, don't deny Mother Earth the connection, because very much what we do and say and think has an effect on her as well. So, it really is important. But anyway,
And
let's just get back to the last bit of number two. So, yeah, it's balance and harmony and unity consciousness, which is on the plus side. On the minus side, of course, is indecision, not knowing, one way or the other. So it's a very sort of dual existence, very fearful, dependent and codependency is very prevalent here as well. Hysteria and mob culture. So again, deciding to do something without really thinking about it because everybody else is doing it, and you connect with that kind of mob hysteria and you do it without really thinking it through. And that is certainly here and in many places in Europe has happened quite a bit already, and it's part of that pattern.
and that's also
So,
happening here in the US too. It's
yeah,
definitely people not
yeah,
thinking and just getting wrapped up in the energy without going,
completely. Yeah.
who am I and do I really
Yes.
agree with
Do I
it?
really want to do this? Stepping back
Yeah.
for a minute and counting to 10 and saying,
Yeah.
hang on a minute, you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So 2025 is full of this wave energy because, of course, the wave comes with a two. We've already discussed two a number of times. But with that wave energy, there's also in 2025 a lot of grief. And that's neither positive or negative, remembering that grief in its aspect of tears is a cleansing, a washing, a purification. However, the grief is about loss and loss of the old, loss of the past, loss of what was, loss of innocence, loss of freedom, loss
Mhm.
of illusion for many people.
I
I think I
yes.
am this person. I put this persona, this facade on when I go out, but actually I'm not like that. And now suddenly I'm realizing that that's what I'm doing, and I'm not comfortable with that anymore. But I have to leave it, but I'm insecure about leaving it, and all of that happens. So there's a huge amount of grief about also, just as I said, the loss of innocence. I mean, even, kids that were kids before the pandemic
Yes.
remember their freedoms that they had then that they don't always have now because things have become different.
I think you've hit on something so huge right there is the to have the grief of the loss a lot of times of the way things were and
Mm,
and sometimes even just opening your eyes to see the world in as it really is and not as the way
mm,
you might have kind of cloaked because it was just easier to view the world that way and to
mm,
view
mm,
yourself that way is it's very eye-opening and can be very, like you said, a dark night of the soul as you work
mm,
yourself through that. But what beauty when it comes out the other side. What
mm,
beauty.
mm. So I've looked at the individual bits of the year, the individual numbers. We're now into gathering all those energies together and looking at 2025 as a whole number. And I'm going to start by looking at this at the best I can. Um, as numerologists, we tend to look at double numbers only, double digits, because anything more than 2 digits becomes so high that it's just out of this, we cannot grasp the concept. So we keep it that it's manageable. But the highest I can get to is by adding 20 to 25, and that gives me 45. It will still resolve into a 9, and I'll look at the 9 as a separate issue later, but the 45 9 has high energy, it's about teaching and demonstrating to others through your own experience. So, not out of a book, not something you've seen somebody else do, or you've watched something on YouTube and you're now doing it. It's about understanding because you've done it. You've made the t-shirt, you haven't just bought it. You've written the book, you haven't just bought it. Yeah. So it's got you in it. And so you understand something through your authentic self rather than something you've imported.
And more action? Is it also dealing with more action in your personal life?
The 45-9 is of a very high frequency because it's 40.
Mm.
So the first realm, the first rung of the ladder is 1 to 9. The second is 10 to 19. That's the second step up. We're talking, and then the third is
Mm.
20 to 29, 30 to 39, 40 to 49. We're talking really high stuff where
Yes.
we can't really grasp it. So it automatically raises the vibration of what it's giving. And what it's about is service to the planet,
Yeah.
service to humanity, service. And the base of that is truth and reality.
Mm.
Having the courage to see life and the self as it really is. A bit with what you said just now.
That
And
does take
the
courage.
bottom line, it's messy, it's primitive. When something happens, most people, the default will be to go into fear, into
Yeah.
panic. Fine, if you do go into fear, into panic, then again, count to 5, step back from it if you can, and then just tackle it quietly rather than allowing the panic to drive you.
I think that's so important because, you talk about fear. Fear is palpable so many times, and so many people have more anxiety than ever before. And correct me if what your thought is. My thought is, as we're going into this, we have to examine and look at everything. It can be very fearful and can bring upon a lot of anxiety with it. But once you work your way through it, it's a releasing and coming back to calm, coming back to center when that happens.
I think also it's important to understand that whatever you're experiencing, it's okay.
Yes.
It's okay because it's part of your growth, and growing, it's not for nothing we call them growing pains.
Yeah.
It's not easy and it's sometimes quite painful to grow. So allow yourself, be kind to yourself, be nice to yourself, give yourself a break, literally, well, no, not literally, but yeah, give yourself a
Yeah.
moment. Yeah. Um,
Absolutely. I think
yeah.
you're right on with that is you have to be okay with where you're at and just
Mm,
work your way through it. Work your way
yeah.
through it. And
And if you need a day off, then have a day off or a couple of days off. I think, spiritual holidays are also okay. And I know people who say, I've had enough of this now. I want to have a break entirely. And they have a week off, a month off, a year off. And then suddenly the ripeness comes back in and they say, hang on, I'm ready for the next level of Reiki, or I want to do this, or can I do a bit more of that? So it's kind of go at your own pace and don't beat yourself up.
I love that with the spiritual holidays because so many people are like, "Oh, I need to learn, I need to do this," and they're just running
No.
themselves into the ground and it's like,
Yeah,
"Man, we're human, go enjoy yourself and then come back when you're
yeah,
ready."
no,
Go to the
yeah,
beach, go to the
completely.
beach, go somewhere warm.
Yes, if you could, it would be lovely.
Yes.
So the courage to see life in yourself means that you have to go within, you have to recognize the truth of yourself and then let that go. I mean, it is what it is, so let it go. Um, the downside is where the unmasking is too painful for people to actually let go of. So they hold on to the fantasy, they hold on to the glamour of whatever it is, the pretense, the illusion, the falsehood. And that drives them into the ground just as much because as this year continues,
Mm.
those things will show themselves to be not true, not real, and therefore it will create more pain. It will be less painful in the end to let them go. Take the mask off, be yourself.
I love
Um, so yeah, so that's the highest teaching of this year. The next one is to take, and here there are two interpretations, 20 plus 2 plus 5, which takes the 20 of the first, the grounding, the daily, everyday stuff. And then the other interpretation is 2 plus 0 plus 25, which puts the emphasis on the spiritual. Both of them come to a 27,
it.
which again is a 9. And the 27 is about wisdom through feeling, the birth of wisdom.
Mm.
And on the plus side, it's about in everyday life, it's about doing things consciously, doing things mindfully, doing things, yeah, everyday decisions, everyday actions, doing things, being present when you do something. So you are wise in the presence, if you like.
Love that. And I think that's important because so many people are trying to do everything here in the spiritual and forgetting like
Mm,
every day we should be living our lives in such a way where we're awake and we're using it and being present in the present moment, I think is so
mm,
important.
mm.
So
Totally, yeah. So that's the more mundane aspect. The spiritual aspect is changing, in a sense, looking at changing your inner technology. So
mm,
looking at changing, I mean, we tend to think that, we think in our minds and the mind's in the head, and we feel in the heart, we have passion in the heart, and that's in the heart chakra, it's in the chest. So the changing the technology might be to ask people to consider swapping that so that you feel with the mind, you're dropping the mind into the heart, you feel with the mind and you think, sorry, yeah, you feel with the mind and you think with the heart.
interesting. I love that. I love that of switching that out and really
Mm,
being more in tune with both parts of that.
mm,
Very interesting concept. I
mm.
love that.
So yeah, and if that, that's very much the highest aspect. But for both of these interpretations, the negative, the downside can be a bit of an OCD thing, a sort of overdoing it, over passionate, over tyrannical, really, and lack of trust in the self, lack of trust in whether I can do this. So, constantly kind of picking at it.
It's
So,
interesting because that's been coming up a lot for me with people
mm,
is the want them wanting to trust themselves more and helping them find a
mm,
way to trust themselves.
mm.
So what yeah, I think you've got it right on the head.
Good. So, well, the numbers have. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So then you come to the kind of basic, boring stuff, which is how most people would see this year. And most people will say, oh, it's a 9 year.
Mm.
Because how have they got there? They've gone 2 plus 0 plus 2 plus 5. It's 9. And then they invariably follow that up by, and it's completion. Um, well, yeah, to a degree, but not really. Um, Completion to me, I mean, and that's probably my definition, but completion to me means finishing something off. So I would complete a painting. I would complete, I don't know, a menu. I would complete, if I'm into knitting or anything like that, craft work, I'd complete the bit of craft or the knitting. I'd finish
Right.
it. So here is my sleeve. I finished it. Or here's my jumper, whatever.
Right.
Um, but this year is not about completing everything. It is about moving from the 9, getting ready, setting the stage, preparing for the transformation from a single digit, which is the 9, to a double digit, which will be the 10 next year,
Mm.
because it will be 2026, which comes out at a 10. And yes, of course, that will be reduced to a 1, but it will have the energy in it of a 10.
Got it.
Yeah, so it
Yes.
becomes, you can see where I'm going with this. So we're still talking selfless service on the plus side. We're talking selfless service from people who make coffee for other people, people who work in bars or clean tables, or anything that's about the energy of how you make that coffee, the energy of how you clean that table. Are you doing it to make somebody else's life nicer because they don't have to put their elbows in somebody else's sticky mess? Or are you just doing it because you're getting a paycheck at the end of the day? So again, what's the energy? What's your frequency? The way you do it. So if you can elevate that, then already you're demonstrating and embodying selfless service.
I love that. And that's something I know you do Reiki and the energy of everything. And even walking in a restaurant, how are the wait staff? How are, the
Mm,
people in
mm,
the back cooking?
mm,
What kind of
mm,
energy are they putting into the food
mm.
you're getting? It's the
Absolutely.
being mindful of and maybe being mindful of yourself. Every
Yeah,
time you leave a spot, are you leaving it better than when you
yeah,
came?
yeah,
So very, very,
yeah.
I love the self-reflection for people
Mm,
to be mindful of that throughout this next year.
mm, mm. So again, it's bringing everything to light that is false. It's shining that light in that huge cupboard that you thought you'd cleaned, and then suddenly you see there's a spider's web and there's, a dead ant or whatever, and you realize that what you thought was okay isn't. And that's very much this year again. With that, unfortunately or fortunately, we are, of course, going to get a certain degree of differences, certain degree of negativity, because bringing to light everything that's false, some
Mm.
people will be disagreeing with that because
Yeah.
they would like to cling on to that. So we will see more uprisings against old injustices, but also more uprisings against people uprising.
Ah,
So you'll
got
get
it.
people, are you with me with that one? So,
Yes, yes.
you might be saying, I want that to be better, but then there'll be a whole load of people who say, well, I don't want you to start, upsetting the apple cart. Don't go there. Keep it all as it was. Keep it, and then again, it's illusion, but it's so there will be that sort of faction in a sort of not exactly revolution, but that sort of energy. Um,
Absolutely.
Increased polarization
Mm.
between people, families, even, partners. It can be as small and as wide as you like. It can do whatever. Which of course magnifies the
Mm.
imbalance of mind and emotion. So you get more opportunity for the waves of emotion to happen.
Interesting.
And all of that, of course, then creates people who are self-serving rather than serving the planet or humanity, unethical, deeply
Mm.
confused. Yeah, a lot of chaos, a lot of avoidance behavior. We've spoken about that already, turbulence, and this desperate need to hold on to the old,
Yes.
clinging on for dear life, because change is fearful.
Absolutely. And it's interesting, you and I were talking earlier about some connection with the Titanic and
Yeah.
electricity. And what my team is showing me in my head right now is water everywhere and all these life preservers everywhere, and people are trying to cling on to what was instead of looking for the boat that's coming to get them. They're still trying to get back to the old boat. And it's really a time, it's making sometimes feeling like very difficult decisions of going, I don't think I believe that anymore, and I have to change what I've even told people. And this is the other thing they're telling me is some of you may be changing your mind about things and then going, well, what will people think? Because now I'm saying something different because I believe something different now. And it's giving yourself the grace to speak a different truth than what you were before.
I think beliefs, for me, I've always found beliefs quite dangerous because a belief starts with a single thought. and then other thoughts come and join and wrap around them, so it becomes stronger and stronger. And then in the end, the thing is so rooted that it won't change. It's stuck. And in a sense, then you have the tides change and the water flows in a different way. And this thing is just sort of holding on, and it's going against the flow of stuff. And it's important to loosen that grip. By all means, believe something, but try and just have an opinion about something rather than have a belief
Bit
because
of
it's too
belief.
strong. But
I
yeah,
love
that's just
that.
me.
And I agree fully. And I tell
Yeah.
people this is what I know right now. This is what
Hmm.
my experience right
Yeah.
now. But
Yeah.
that may change the next time you see
Completely.
me. That may change,
Mm,
and
yeah.
that's okay. It's not that
Yeah.
I change myself. It's just I'm realizing there's more to the story.
Yeah. No, completely.
Mm.
So with all of that, we've also got to remember the Earth, because we're
Mm,
talking about service to planet as well. So the
yes.
Earth is going through exactly the same upheavals as we are. The Earth is trying to redefine herself. It depends on whether think of Earth as a planet or Earth as Gaia. It doesn't really matter. The rock we live on is redefining herself,
I love that.
itself, herself, whatever. And it's doing that. And since I looked it up whenever it was, since the 3rd of the 1st, so since the 3rd of January, we've had Ethiopia, El Salvador, Tibet, Nepal, Mexico, Japan. We've had fires, we've had floods, we've had all sorts. We've currently got an iceberg floating around, which is got loose from the Antarctic and is floating towards some island, which is about to decimate. So we've had quakes, and this year is very much the redefinition that Earth is trying to do is through moving and changing herself. So you will get quakes and landslides. You will get different boundaries coming up, not man-made boundaries, but nature-made boundaries.
Yeah,
So storms
interesting.
and floods and fires and cyclones and all of that, because two is water and the energy of water and the emotion. But 9 and 5, which we've seen a lot of, 9 is the year we're in, and 5 is that switch that gets us onto that ultra speedy trajectory, is air. And
Hmm.
at the highest level, 9 and 5 are about bringing air into Earth. And so we're looking at perhaps seeing more comets, seeing more meteors, having some degree of energies coming in from outer space, however you wish to interpret that.
Love it.
And also the factor of geomagnetic storms,
Mm,
because in that sense, the geomagnetic storms and the CMEs, the coronal mass ejections, bringing particles further into our atmosphere, because the magnetic storms, the geomagnetic storms, weaken the magnetic shield of the Earth. They have done for many years. It's really, really weak now. So any major eruption on the sun, and I mean, when I used to start these talks, it was about 2008
mm.
when I started doing them. And we used to, I mean, it was a novel thing if you had one or two CMEs in a year. Now there's 2 or 3 a week.
Yeah,
So if you
huge.
look at the NASA website, it can all be verified. This is verifiable. Look on your NASA space website, and they will process, it'll tell you what's going on. Um, so the magnetic shield weakens and the particles come nearer to us. They come into our aura, they come into the earth, they come into the animal's aura. So that
Mm,
could possibly explain why whales are beaching in different places, while why some species of birds are not migrating in the way they used to, or they are somehow going a bit absent without leave. They're going
yeah.
AWOL. They're going, they're going to
They're
different
going
places.
awry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And we've
that
noticed that
is,
here with even animals here. It's like,
yeah.
wow, it's such a
And the
different.
behavior of animals. And I've had people
Yes.
say to me, my dog is always so good, and I've suddenly she's biting me, and what's happening? And Well, the poor thing is just as much suffering and mental wobble as you are.
And that's great information for people to realize, especially there's so many people with pets and all
I
of a sudden
know.
they'll have different behaviors. And it's like you have to
Yeah,
realize what we're going through, so are they. And you need to have a little bit of grace for the animals you have
yeah.
in your steed, per se.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think also their antennae, they are so much more sensitive to the
Mm,
outside influences. Um, we've also got that nice little thing called the Schumann resonance, which is the heartbeat of the planet. And when I did this similar talk, I always do different notes for each time because I'm doing them on different days. And like I said to you before, today is the 25th, and that works very nicely in with the
perfectly.
25 that we talked about. But um, when I did this last, I looked up and it was on the 18th, which of course is also a 9. And the Schumann resonance was fluctuating between 7.83 and 33.8. So
Oh,
that is not something we can hear because it's a hertz frequency,
right.
and it is dispelled by the earth, but we can feel it. And somebody said to me the other day, well, how can you feel sound? Well, I'm a sound therapist, one of my hats, and I have a profoundly deaf client who comes and lies down, and I play gongs for her, and she feels them. She
Yes.
doesn't hear them, she feels them. But her sense of feeling the vibration is very much heightened because she cannot hear, never has been able to hear.
Wow.
So I think animals have that too. So if the earth is fluctuating, and we go back to the science of it for a minute. It used to be 7.3, and then it went up very gradually to 7.8. Many, many years it was constant. It didn't used to have a fluctuation. And our resonance, our Hertz frequency, it was the same. So we as humanity and the earth as the rock we live on were vibrating, if you like, to the same vibration, to the same Hertz. Now the earth is doing all sorts of things and we're running to catch up, and it's no wonder we are completely disorientated by it. And this is why it's so important to have some kind of discipline and some kind of yeah, toolbox that you can go to and that you can keep yourself centered.
I think
So
that's super important. And for people to realize the Schumann resonance, go out, if you're not familiar with it, go out and Google it. They have a chart
completely.
there. You can watch it pretty much live. I'm pretty sure it's
Yes.
pretty much live at this point.
Yeah.
You can see the hertz change and see what's happening around
Mm,
the world. So
mm,
definitely check into that.
mm. So really, the summary of it is that on the plus side, it's hugely creative this year. We can create anything we want, and we are going to. There's going to be an influx in AI. It's going to be much, much more sort of off, outer space technology, if you will. Innovations, very young people bringing innovations in because they have the clarity. They're not burdened by, oh, this is how we should be doing it. This is how we used to do it. No, they just do it. And so new ways
Love
of
that.
being and doing, which is highly exciting and very, it really is an exciting year. On the downside, though, we have this chaos
Yeah.
and we have a very noisy and unstable year because of the energies and because of not so much the energies themselves, but how people react to them. And it's really down to humanity who make the noise, to be honest. And then, of course, incredibly fast, which has the potential to trigger lower emotions for a lot of people because they don't like it being so fast. They can't cope. It's all too quick. And then they go into the downward spiral. So I think the watchwords, to be honest, are be careful to what you give power to. Be careful what you give power to. So that's not just likes in on Facebook because you're liking something, you're giving power to something. So be
Yes.
mindful, is that really what you want to give power to? And then again, we've spoken about the thought, the speech, and the action. The the intention to intentionally use, mindfully use the cancel, delete, and clear. to void whatever wasn't wanted.
Oh,
So it
like
just
that.
cancels it out. And then to remember that how we experience things is very much defined by our own inner state. So if we're calm and we're reasonably sort of in touch with ourselves, our core truth, our higher self, but also our earth self, and we are properly earthed and properly skied, if you will,
I
then
love
we have that ability to be true and walk in our light. But if we, and then we experience things in a calmer way and just able to count to 10 before we make a judgment, a decision, decide on an action, whatever it is. And then finally, of course, the responsibility for your own inner state to take that and to be aware of your emotions and to choose what you hold on to and what you let go of. Because the only place we have power is now, is
it.
now in the present. We don't have power in the future. We don't have power in the past. We have power now. So this is the place we make a decision.
I love that where you ended up with, we have power now. We do have the power now. Are you willing to step into it, or are you willing to give your
Completely.
power to someone else?
Yeah.
Because now is the power, the time to reclaim the power a lot of us have given to others without even realizing it. A lot of times, you give your power to others without even realizing it and knowing you can claim that power back for yourself. And I love the cancel, delete, and clear. I love that.
Well, it's simple, but it works. And it's also, it's not a lot to kind of remember. It's just it's what you do on your computer. So it
Yeah.
kind of has a familiarity.
Yes.
You cancel it, you delete it, and then you clear the history, and you make sure there aren't any cookies attached. Kind of.
That is true.
So yeah.
Man.
So that's kind of that. And I mentioned to you before that obviously you might have questions, you might have points, although we've done it really nicely. I think it worked really well, that we had a sort of dialogue going throughout. It worked well for me, and hopefully it worked well for you as well.
Absolutely.
But I tend to try and give somebody and leave people with a tool if I can, because it's always nice to give somebody something in addition to, okay, you've had the cancel, delete, and clear, but have something as well tucked in your toolkit that you can rely on when things do get panicky and things do get a bit fraught and you are stuck in a situation where you are a bit fearful, and it can happen to all of
Yeah,
us. So I wondered
absolutely.
whether you would allow me to do a short exercise, and maybe you'd like to do it with me. It will take about 10 minutes, probably less, to be honest. I don't know if you have time for that.
Absolutely. And I love the fact because you've given people so much information about what's coming up, but underlying it, it's us remaining calm. It's us stepping past the fear and to say, well, don't be fearful. Well, be
Mm.
calm. Well, how are ways to do that? So I think it would be absolutely lovely for you to share that with people.
Oh, well, that's lovely. Well, thank you, Angela. Well, I hope you can do that as well. So it's basically a belly breath exercise. It's a breathing exercise which can be done anywhere. Before you do anything else, I just want to ask you to check in with yourself to see how you feel. And just click that feeling, just be with that. Hopefully you won't feel too ruffled, but there could be people, obviously, when you do feel ruffled, just check how you feel. And then close the eyes and place the hands on the lap, palm upwards, and the total focus on the breath. And all you're going to do is to imagine the breath dropping into the belly. Just in the in breath, it's going into the belly. It's just going quite deep. And then it's the out breath as normal. And the in breath again, feeling the breath dropping into the belly. And in a sense, it's almost like the breath is breathing you. And slowly you feel, as you continue to breathe in and dropping that breath into the belly, that you're dropping into a sense of peace in your belly. It's giving you a sense of peace, keeping the breathing simple and soft and really gentle. It's important not to push, not to force, not to rush. Breathing in into the belly, a bit like a baby, and back out again. And you'll notice as you do this that automatically the breath is naturally slowing down. And so as you notice that, allow the out breath to be slightly longer than the in breath. Go at your own pace. Just let that out breath be just the slightest bit longer than the in breath. Keep doing that. After a few breaths, you're getting to a point where you can allow the breath to pause after the out breath. Just pause for a nanosecond. Just pause and then breathe back in again. And do that a few times. Breathe in, the out breath slightly longer, a tiny pause, and breathe back in again. And now gently try and extend that pause. Just a little, just for a few seconds. And note the feeling it gives you. The feeling of peace that you had already, but now also a sense of calm in that pause, a sense of bliss in that pause. It soothes, it calms. And keep on gently extending that pause as much as is comfortable at each breath, at the end of each breath. And this pause is powerful. It is our 0 point. It is the point where natural healing occurs, the point of our power. I'll keep breathing in that way with that pause. And then gradually feel that you would like to start coming back. And so you bring your breath to normal. No rush, just gently. And you can then open your eyes. Check in before anything else how you feel now. How does it feel?
It feels wonderful for me. It feels like I am ready to take on the world right now.
Mm. So what you're actually doing with the chemistry in your body, in that pause that we have, it normally happens during sleep as our breathing pattern changes in sleep state. And I forget what it's called, the stem cells, that's right. The stem cells that are responsible for healing and sorting out any injuries we've had during the day, any, cuts and bruises and bits and pieces. Why people say, well, have a sleep, go to bed and sleep, because it's the breathing that actually creates that ability for the stem cells to go to the point that needs to be rescued and needs to be mended and do their work. And so what we're doing at this point is we're artificially, if you like, creating that simply by our intention, our willingness, and our discipline to do it. And you who did that exercise in less than 10 minutes, I think it was about 5, actually, 5.5, something like that. So we did it quite quickly. But it will boost your immunity because what happens, it lowers your cortisol levels, which is part of the fight and flight. So part of your fear response will go down. Your biomarkers in your blood will have reduced. Again, that's part of the part of our blood that deals with stress. And when we stress, of course, when we are in fear and we are stressed, we breathe fast. It's clavicular breathing. It's breathing up here, the clavicles. It's this breathing and not down here. So we breathe more shallowly, and then the emotion is driving the breath. So what we have done in this exercise, this belly breathing exercise, is we've changed it round. We've mastered the emotions because now the breath is driving the emotions. So it's calmed us, and therefore we have mastered our emotions simply through breathing.
I love that. They're showing me an image right now when you think of a young child when they get so worked up and they're just almost hyperventilating. It's and you
Yeah,
have to tell them breathe, breathe. And it's realizing intuitively we've known what to do, but we really haven't examined why we're doing it. And I love the fact that you brought that through to help people, for one thing, trust their intuition, trust themselves, and then a simple exercise for them to do. And I love the fact, like you said, it really wasn't that long, but what the benefits you get even from that short amount of time, because there's so many people you hear, I'm so busy, I can't fit in 20 minutes or 2 hours or whatever to go, do you have 5 minutes?
yeah. And you don't need a mantra, you don't need a ritual. And the other thing it does, it calms you down, makes you peaceful. But think what it does for everybody else, because when you're calm and peaceful, you will beam out that calm and peace into your surroundings. So into your workplace, into your family, into your partner, into whoever you're with. And so that will help them to feel a little calmer. So that's your service to the planet and service to humanity. Just keep breathing, but breathe in that belly breath.
I love that because so many people say, "Well, what difference can I make? What would just me and what can I
Mm,
do that would make a difference in the world?" And just
mm,
pe and especially now, just people
mm,
remaining calm and centered is
mm,
so very important going forward. And that is
mm,
people don't give it enough credence of how important that is. And
mm,
yet you're showing people it is so very important, and I love that part of it.
good. So yeah, so that's kind of that's where we're at. So I hope you've managed to enjoy that and got something from it.
Absolutely. I love that part of it. I love the fact that giving somebody tools they can use to help them navigate this year and
Mm,
beyond, because,
mm,
like you said, we're in the 20s and it's
mm.
going to continue for a while. So to be prepared
It
for
is.
that
Yeah, yeah,
is, I think that's so very important for people. And, one of the things with you is you also are very in tune, like you had said, to the sound and how sound works together. And is there something you would recommend to people as far as sound? Like, is there a difference
yeah.
between like gong and different ways, or what do you recommend?
No, more simply, because not everybody has a gong, but
Right.
everybody has a voice. And the sound we make to ourselves. And so many times I hear people talk about my headache. I have my headache, my illness, my diabetes, my this, my that. And I feel like saying, please neutralize that personal pronoun. It's not, do you want it? Is the first question. Do you
Oh,
want that? If you don't want it, stop owning it. The
interesting.
headache, the diabetes, the flu, the toothache. I know it sounds a bit weird. It sounds weird when you start it, but get used to what you're doing. By owning it, you are making more of it. So you're actively encouraging it to grow because it's mine. Yeah, does that make sense?
Absolutely. And I'm glad you brought that up because so many people they describe everything as theirs, 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 and when you
Mm,
instead describe it as more of something out there, this is a headache,
yeah,
this is diabetes, this is this,
yeah, yeah,
without making it yours, and
yeah.
the importance of understanding the words we speak and how we speak them,
Mm,
I think is transformative going forward. And like you said, we don't even realize you do it.
Mm.
And how did you come up with, were you just listening, watching, and just paying attention to how you're doing things and to really watch your words?
Not my first language. English is not my first language. So, although I've been living in England since I was 16, I'm Dutch by birth, and so I had to learn English. And I've always liked words. I've just whatever, and I particularly like the English language because it's much richer than Dutch is, and it's much more at the front of the mouth rather than the guttural. So I've always preferred that. And I just enjoy the sounds and I enjoy the openness and the vowel sounds, the consonant sounds, whatever. Um, and yeah, I've studied language and obviously my background as different hat again, but I was an actor for a long time. So it was a question of when I went to drama school, it was learning, looking at words and how we spoke and what they meant and the psychology of it and the philosophy of it and all of that. So yeah, there's a whole, but it's a lifetime's work really, but I'm just curious about stuff. So that's it, curiosity.
Curiosity. And that's the thing for people to be curious, to
Yeah,
question, to really look at things.
yeah.
That's so important going forward. We all should be so curious and excited to learn new things and excited to
Mm,
understand new things. And the thing is, your lifetime of experience is now I'm just hearing like these little nuggets of information that will help so many people for
mm,
other people to go, oh, that makes sense. Oh, that makes sense to help them on their way. You are definitely
mm.
in service with everything you do, and I
Oh,
appreciate you
thank you.
so much.
Thank
So
you. That's
much.
very kind of you. It's what my mission is. It's yes, it's what I'm here for. It's my life purpose. So yes, absolutely. So
It
yeah.
is beautiful. Do you prefer, and with you, you said just music in general is something for people to step into, music of any sort is something to help them?
Yeah, and again, you know, don't underestimate the very basic humming that we can do.
Mm. Yes.
Just lying on the floor on your back. I mean, a lot of people do yoga, so they might be doing yoga practice at home. They can just lie on their mat, on their back, and just hum and make as deep a sound as they can and feel where it resonates in the body and
Mm.
feel how that vibration in the body is actually helping the knitting together of tissues, the relaxing of the muscles. It's helping our own body through our own mechanism, and each person has their own voice, their own way of speaking, their own sound, which is tuned and attuned to their own physicality. So for me to hum to you might be good, but for you to hum to you is much more effective because you're doing it to yourself.
I love that. I love that. And I think that's something more people should really look at. You can be in the car, you can be in the shower,
Mm,
you can be
mm,
getting ready and you can just hum and just think of just that vibration going through you. And I'm just hearing now, think of if everyone was humming, think of the vibration it would give to the earth, give to what we are already standing on, that rock we're already on.
mm,
Think of the
mm.
vibration we can offer the earth with us humming too.
So yes, as much as I'm a great devotee of the gong and the bowls and the shruti box and I don't know how many instruments in the house and I do gong bowls everywhere, but actually don't underestimate the voice and the power of the voice to the person who owns it.
Mm.
The person whose voice it is, because that is actually worth its weight in gold. So again, about taking responsibility. You've got your instrument. It's your voice. How are you talking to yourself? How are you talking about yourself? Do you
Mm.
talk to yourself by denigrating yourself or uplifting yourself? Do you talk to yourself by, saying, oh, you stop being so silly when you do something? Or do you say, wow, you did really well today? And praising yourself and doing it out loud. And I cannot emphasize enough the importance of speaking out loud, because when you speak out loud, you place your vibration into the universe and it carries power. So be careful what you say out loud, because if you say something that you'd rather not, that power is going to go into the universe. And once it's gone in, it's, yes, you can cancel, delete and clear, but that vibration is still kind of there. So you do need to be super careful.
It's kind of like anything you put on the internet. You can delete it on your end, but it's still there. Someone's got it somewhere.
Completely. Yeah. The footprint, the energetic footprint is there. So although you've taken back your intention and karmically for you, you're sort of neutralized it,
Yes.
the footprint is still there somewhere.
Yeah, that is so very true. And I love the idea of just paying attention to how you speak to yourself. And there's so many people, they've never spoken out loud about loving themselves or appreciating what they've done. Those are powerful. Think of how it feels when you say it to someone else and how it makes them feel. But what about how it makes you feel when you say it to yourself? So many people have not given themselves the credit where credit's due.
Yeah.
So I appreciate all that you have been sharing with us today. It has been absolutely amazing. And I
Mm.
feel so impactful and so helpful to so many people out there. And I appreciate it greatly. Is there something else you'd like to cover before we close for today?
Um, if anybody's interested in numerology, they're very welcome to be in touch. I do personal charts. I can do things over Zoom, obviously. And very often that is more powerful to do it face to face on a Zoom call rather than writing out, great tomes of stuff. So I prefer doing it that way by speech, because then things drop in a bit like you were saying, and you
Yes.
can add that to get the mix right. But yeah, anything really. If anybody has a question about what we've talked about as well, then that's fine. But
I love
other than
that.
that, I'd like to thank you so much for the opportunity, because it's been really lovely to talk to you. And I felt I've spoken to a kindred spirit, and that's
Oh.
rare. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much. It felt so good with this interview and everything brought through. And I felt with my team, and they were just like, just so excited to bring this information forward for people. And you have just such a beautiful heart, and it just shines. And I appreciate you so much.
Oh, thank you.
So I just want to remind everyone today. Go to Kay's Facebook page, which is KAY.KRATY, Kay Kraty, and you can find her there and you can contact her, set up a session with her. She has so much knowledge and such a beautiful heart. I highly encourage you to contact her and see what she's doing on her page also, because there is so much beauty and so much to share with her. And navigating this 2025, I know Kay can help you navigate your 2025. She offers
Can
so much.
I, sorry, can I just interrupt? There's also my email, and I,
Oh,
I
yes.
hope you can pop that in. So that's the AOL one that I think you have. We've spoken on that. So it's kkraty@aol.com. So again, that's a good way, but just do put a subject heading, because if you don't put a subject heading, it tends to go into my spam, unfortunately. So just
That
put
is a
numerology or US talk or whatever it was, or even put Angela's talk, whatever. Yeah, and Angela's interview or Edge, whatever, but some kind of context so I know.
I
That,
love that. And that's very important for people to realize. Put a
yeah,
subject line in there because there's so many spam things going on. You're just like, there's
completely.
no
Yeah,
subject line, it's spam.
yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. So make sure to contact her on her email, and I'll have those links down below also. So thank you so much, Kate. I am so appreciative of everything you offer and how much you are offering to the world and the change in this world. It is felt. And I'm just seeing a shockwave going. What you are doing is a shockwave going through the world, helping this world shift from where we are now to where we are going. And it is so much appreciated. So,
Thank you. And you.
oh,
And you.
thank
You
you
are
so
managing it.
much.
So yes, thank you so much.
Oh, well, thank you so much. And I just want to encourage everyone, again, go to to either her Facebook of K.Kraty and go on Facebook, and I will have her email listed down below. And then also I just want to thank everyone for being here, and thank you so much, Kay, for sharing your time, sharing your knowledge with all the people here. And I also want to make sure to let people know you can watch the next episodes of Edge Talk Radios. They will start coming out in March on the first and third Wednesdays of the month. We're moving from Tuesdays to Wednesdays starting in March. And if you've missed any past episodes, you can listen to the downloadable podcast or you can watch the interview on either my YouTube channels, Edge YouTube channels, or this will also be playing on multiple different Facebook pages. So make sure to watch it there. And I just want to thank everyone. I want to thank you all for listening, expanding, and amplifying our universe together. Thank you so much and have an absolutely